Hey, welcome back, podcast friends. Now, today, just like the title of this podcast says, I want to give you kind of 10 basic principles that I personally feel is very important for a healthy lifestyle. So, um, I guess I'll just start right off. First, the very first thing that I think is extremely important is you've got to prioritize protein when you eat. And I'm not going to go a lot into any of these 10. I'm not going to go into a lot because I've done a lot of podcasts on each of these individually. So I will be giving you the names of different podcasts that I've done if you want to, if there's any of these topics that I talk about that you'd like to hear more about. So the first one is prioritize protein. And in episode 85, I did a whole podcast on why is protein important. But the main thing I need you to realize is our bodies are totally made up of protein. Our organs, our muscles, our skeletal system, everything is made up of protein. So it is very important. And we need lots of protein to maintain our body, because as our body breaks down, as it does constantly, our bodies are constantly repairing that. So the whole purpose of a healthy lifestyle is give your body the nutrients it needs to repair that damage, to grow, to heal, to thrive, and survive. That's what's important. We have to give our body nutrients. And ever since our dietary guidelines came out in 77, everybody's been brainwashed by all these marketing schemes talking about how important carbohydrates are, that we are killing ourselves as a nation. The United States is so unhealthy now because of these marketing schemes that brainwashed everybody, and everybody thinks that that's true. That's real. That our dietary guidelines are correct, and they are as far from correct as you could possibly be. So that's what I want to give you, the 10 things that I think are truly important. And this isn't a marketing scheme, but that is one. Prioritize your protein. Now, just so you know, and I'll talk about it in that podcast 85 also, but just a quick recap is basically, if you take all the protein that's in both animals and in plants, put them all together, the basic building block of protein is called an amino acid. And if you take all those proteins and broke them down to the amino acids, there's only 20. There's only 20 amino acids that make up all the proteins and all the plants and all the animals. Okay. So think of these amino acids like little Lego building blocks. Of those 20 amino acids, 9 of those are considered essential amino acids. That means that our bodies don't make them. We have to get it from the food that we eat. Okay. So 20 total amino acids, 9 of them are essential. We have to eat them. Our bodies don't make them. But from those 20 amino acids, our bodies can make up to over 20,000 different types of proteins that our body needs. And some of these proteins have up to 27,000 amino acids long. So we need lots of protein. And I'll tell you how much in just a little bit, but it's very, very important. So when you're talking about protein and when you're talking about nutrients, there's two different things that you talk about. There's either nutrient dense ways of getting protein, and there's nutrient sparse ways of getting protein. So nutrient dense is just like I said, there's a lot of nutrients in a very small amount. And that's what you get when you eat animal meat or animal products. You get a lot of protein in a little amount, plus you get, depending on which animal meat you're having, but you're also going to be getting fat, the fatty acids, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, in a small amount. And you'll get all the vitamins and all the minerals that your body needs if you eat a good animal-based meal. That's the main thing, is prioritize animal-based proteins, meat, okay? And you're going to get everything that you need. It's extremely healthy. Now, the other way, you can do nutrient sparse, like fruits and vegetables. They do have some vitamins and minerals in them, but you have to eat so much of it to get the amount that you need. They also have some protein in it, but you have to eat so much of it to get the amount that you need. And just think about it globally. We are animals. So when we eat animals, we're getting all the amino acids that an animal needs to be able to grow, heal, thrive, and survive. When you eat plants and that's all you eat, you are not getting anywhere near that. Well, you're not getting the amino acids that an animal needs. You're getting some that you don't need, and you're not getting some that you do. So you have to supplement with extra amino acids, different amino acids, if you're eating a plant-based nutrition. So, and that's the deal, because, and again, I talked about this. Also, when you eat plants, plants do not want to be eaten. They are trying to protect themselves. They are wanting to thrive just like animals do. So the way plants do it, because they don't have claws, they don't have teeth, they can't run. So the only way they can defend themselves is by putting these poisons, these toxins in the plants to help keep animals away from it. And I talked all about this in episode 117 on what toxins are in plants. Okay. And again, if you just eat a little bit of it, chances are it's not going to accumulate. Although in some people it does. But if you eat a lot of them, you really have to be careful of accumulating these toxins that plants have. So some of the toxins we're talking about, and again, I'll talk more about it or talk more about it back in episode 117. But there's like lectins and phytates and tannins. What these do is when those things get into your body, into your intestines, so you eat them through your mouth, goes in your stomach and in your intestines, those actually bind to nutrients in your food and keep those nutrients from being absorbed into your body. So if you're eating things for nutrients, but you're going to have any of these plants that have lectins or phytates or tannins in them, then you're still not going to be getting the vitamins and the minerals that you need. So even if you eat the plants with an animal food, because the animal food, when you eat animal products, all the vitamins and minerals and everything, they're already broken down into a very absorbable, usable type of vitamins and minerals. They're already in the form that you need. With plants, our body has to do some stuff to get them into the form they need. One of them is using the bacteria that's in our gut. And again, I talked about that in episode 117, so I'm not going to go deep into it. But you also have to remember that when you have things like the lectins and phytates and tannins, which are in lots of plants, these actually compromise the absorption of things like zinc and iron and magnesium. So that's why we're seeing a lot of people, they're eating all these plants because that's what, the food companies are telling everybody, you have to eat carbohydrates. But what happens is we're finding that a lot of people are deficient in zinc and in iron and in magnesium. This is a common thing. And this is one of the reasons why. The other thing is a lot of plants actually have toxins in them because the plants, they're going to absorb the minerals that are in the soil where they're being grown. And you have to be careful of where these plants are grown when you're getting them, because a lot of them, they are very good about absorbing things like lead and like arsenic. And most of these are going to be in your root vegetables, like carrots and sweet potatoes, the ones that grow underneath the ground. But these are things you have to worry about. So be careful. If you're going to eat plants, you need to find out where they're being grown and what's in that area, because you very well could be getting lead poison or arsenic poison. The other thing is you can get rid of some of these with plants by doing things like fermenting them. So when you ferment plants, a lot of times, when the toxins that are in these plants, since they keep the minerals and vitamins from being absorbed into your body, or a lot of them, they're actually called anti-nutrient plants. These are anti-nutrients. And one way you can kind of get rid of some of these anti-nutrients and some of these heavy metals is by things like fermentation or from cooking. There's different things that you can do. And that I won't be talking about any of that during this time either. But the other thing is how much protein do you need? Okay. When you talk about how much protein you need, you usually need around 0.8 to 1.2 grams per pound of your body weight. That's what you need. And so this means your ideal body weight. Okay. So if you're very large, all you need to do is look at what and most people know exactly about what they need to do, how much they need to eat. How much they weigh, should be weighing. And so take that, your ideal body weight, and then take 0.8 to 1.2, depending on what you're doing. And that's the amount of grams that you need every day. Wait just a moment. Okay, I'm sorry about that. So when you're eating plants, you are not going to be getting anywhere near the amount of protein that you need. And when you're eating plants, you're also going to be getting, if you're doing this, you're going to be getting accumulation of some of these anti-nutrients and some of these heavy metals. So it's very, very important that you don't want to eat a whole bunch of plants. And remember that all plants, all carbohydrates are plant-based carbohydrates or plant-based. The other thing with that is if you are trying to eat enough plants to get the vitamins and the minerals and the protein that you need, you are also increasing your carbohydrate intake. And all carbohydrates have the basic building block of glucose. So now, every time you eat that, your glucose levels are going to go up, and that's going to make your insulin levels go up. And remember, that's the problem that we're having with everything. Our whole three columns of disease is high insulin levels and high glucose levels and inflammation. And that's what you're going to get when you eat these kind of plants, if that's your only type of nutrition. So the way I do it, and we eat plants, we'll eat like lettuce and we'll have tomato or pickle or something, but you don't want to eat a whole lot. So basically we say eat mainly animal meat, animal sourced foods. And then if you want to use the vegetables and minerals, just kind of use it kind of like a condiment. Okay. Just not very many, definitely not the main part of your food. But anyway, so that's enough on protein. So the number one is prioritize protein. Number two is don't fear fat. Again, the food companies and drug companies and sugar industry and chemical companies and big ag have done such a great job of brainwashing everybody into these lies that carbohydrates are that's your mainstay. That should be mainly what you feed off of, what you eat off of. That is a lie. That has absolutely been proven over and over and over and over again that is the exact opposite of what you want to do, because you actually don't need any carbohydrates whatsoever. So don't fear fat. That's the other thing that they've been telling you. Don't fear fat, or they've been telling you to be afraid of fat. Do all these fat-free and low-fat diets, and that is horrible. And if you look at it in these things, when you take the fat out of these things, like say you're going to get a salad dressing and have fat-free or low-fat, look at them. The more fat they take out, the more sugar they add back in. And sugar is the toxin, not fat, depending on the type of fat that you're talking about. And that's what's important, because remember, we talked about on the proteins, we said that there are 20 total proteins and 9 of them are essential, meaning your body doesn't make you have to eat them. Okay. That's the same thing with fat. There are 2 essential fatty acids, means your body does not make these. You have to get it from the food that you eat. And those fatty acids are omega-3 and omega-6. Now, omega-6 is when you eat omega-6 fatty acids, and I'll explain what has these. When you eat omega-6 fatty acids, that turns into inflammatory prostaglandins. And you want that. You want to be able to have a little bit of inflammation in your body. Inflammation is actually good. It can just get too bad when you have too much inflammation. But if you have pneumonia, or if you get a splinter in your finger, or you cut your foot, or whatever, you need to set up an inflammatory response so that it can go to that. It can take care of all the debris, kill whatever organisms may have been there, and then replenish the cells. And every single cell that you replenish is made up. Every single cell in your body has fat around its cell membrane. So fat is extremely important. And then there's so many other reasons why fat is important. And I won't go into it now, but again, podcasts I've already talked about is podcast 108 and 109. Podcast 108 is the fat facts, why cholesterol is vital to our health. And 109 is the fat facts, why is fat vital to our health. So you can go and you can listen to those if you really want to hear more of those. So that's episode 108 and 109. But the main thing is you don't want to fear fat. What you do want to fear is wrong ratios of fat. So again, remember, omega-6 is inflammatory. Omega-3 is anti-inflammatory. So when you're talking about what are the good fats, what are good fats? Good fats are natural fats. They are found in nature. Those are the healthy fats. It's that simple. So what are we talking about? We're talking about animal fats. So if you go get animal and you have the fat that's on the meat, say you're eating a ribeye and you have the fat in there, that is a very good type of fat because of this ratio of omega-6 to omega-3. So if you have like you want a ratio of omega-6. So you want a little bit more omega-6, which are inflammatory, versus your omega-3, which are anti-inflammatory. So it doesn't take a whole lot of anti-inflammatory to be able to balance that out. However, if you eat a grass-fed grain or grass-fed and grass-finished beef, that has a great ratio of about 3 omega-6s to 1 omega-3. Okay. However, if you eat a grass-fed grain-finished cow or beef, then that's going to have a ratio about 7 omega-6 to 1 omega-3. And that's still very good. Okay. So, and think about this just real quick. The way they fatten cows, if you have a cow that's been eating grass to grow, then they send that to the stockyards where they're going to fatten them up, or feeding lots, feedlots. They feed them grain to fatten them up. Do you understand? They feed grain to fatten them up. But then on the human side, these companies are telling you grains are important. You need to eat your grains. You need to eat your carbohydrates. Do you understand where the lies are coming from? Those kinds of things make you more obese and lead to all this diseases that we're seeing right now. So that is a lie. What you want to do is you want to eat a good, healthy animal fat. And some of the fats we're talking about, and again, we're talking about a 3-to-1 ratio or 7-to-1 ratio, and those are good ratios. Some of the fats we're talking about are like meat, real animal meat, whether it's beef, bison, fish, chicken, turkey, whatever, just eat an animal-based fats and you're going to be getting what you need. But you can get that out of meat. You can get it out of butter. You can get it out of full fat milk, full fat Greek yogurt, eggs, lard, which is pig fat, and tallow, which is beef fat. Okay. All those are very good, healthy fat because they come naturally. The other types of healthy fat are fruit fats. Okay. The fruit fats are fine. So like avocado oil is good. Coconut oil is good. And extra virgin olive oil is good. Those are fruit fats. It's called extra virgin because they don't have to do a lot of processing, because it's the processing that is toxic to your body. So that leads us to the bad fats. What are bad fats? Bad fats are the seed oils. Seed oils, they call them vegetable oils. They see seed oil and vegetable oils. Again, that's just marketing. They think that they've told everybody that vegetables are so good, so they're going to say this is a vegetable oil. It's a lie. These are seed oils, and these are not natural. And they have to do so many things with these seeds to be able to get this toxic oil out of it. So it's got all kinds of petrochemical solvents. It has bleaching agent, deodorizers. They say when they're in the manufacturing plant where they're having all this oil, these seed oils being produced, they say it stinks so bad that they all have to wear respirators and put deodorizers in there because they can't stand the smell. So what are we talking about as far as seed oils? We're talking about corn oil, soybean oil, canola oil, Crisco, safflower oil, all those oils that you see on the shelves. Those are toxic for so many reasons. And I talk about that in those episodes 108 and 109. But the chemicals that they put in there is horrible. So the chemicals are extremely inflammable, or in inflammation, cause a lot of inflammation in your body. But the other thing is, remember we talked about the ratio of omega-6 to omega-3, and you want somewhere around 3-to-1 or 7-to-1 like you get with the animal products. With these seed oils, they get up to 50-to-1, 50 omega-6s to 1 omega-3. So it is extremely inflammatory. And that is one of the columns that we have of the 3 columns of disease: high insulin, high glucose, and high inflammation. And a lot of that inflammation is the chemicals that we put in our mouth. And yeah, there's chemicals all around us. The products we put on our skin, on our hair, everything, it's in our water, it's in our grass, it's everywhere. However, unless you're going to move, those you can't do a whole lot about. But what you put in your mouth, you have 100% choice over what you put in your mouth. And I would say stay far away from these unnatural seed oils because they are toxic. Okay, so we've talked about, I know I've gone a lot and I've only gone through the first 2. These next ones are going to go pretty fast. So we've got prioritize protein and we have don't fear fat. The other one is control your carbohydrates. Okay, be careful of what you're eating. So remember we said that there are 9 essential amino acids from protein. There are 2 essential fatty acids from fat. There are zero essential carbohydrates. You never have to put a carbohydrate, a plant-based food in your mouth ever, and you will live perfectly healthy and probably even more healthy than the people who are putting the plants in their mouths. Okay. And again, I'm not bad mouthing fruits and vegetables. I'm just saying, be careful what you eat and make sure you don't eat very much of them. And you should be eating them seasonally. If they aren't growing at that time, you shouldn't be eating them. You should not be eating strawberries in the middle of December. That makes zero sense. So that's one way you can control it. And also, and I've talked about these in some of the other things, some of the other podcasts. Episode 87, are carbohydrates important for proper nutrition? No, they're not. Even the USDA says the minimum requirement of carbohydrates that you should eat is 0. That's the minimum, meaning you don't need anything else. If you are having trouble with blood glucose, or if you have any disease, if you're on medications that you take every day, month after month, that means you're unhealthy, period. That means you're unhealthy. And that's when you need to be more specific or more cautious about what you're eating. Because some of these carbohydrates, if the plant grows below the ground, like potatoes, sweet potatoes, carrots, all those, that has a lot of starch in it, which is a lot of glucose. And so when you eat potatoes and sweet potatoes and carrots, you're putting a lot of glucose in your body, which raises your insulin levels very high, which is what leads to insulin resistance. It's part of what leads to insulin resistance. But so if you have trouble with blood glucose, you might want to avoid the plants that grow below the ground and just stick to the ones that grow above the ground, because they have a lot of water and other things in them. So they don't have as much of the glucose that you're gonna have to worry about. So fruits and vegetables, that's the deal with that. Okay. Yes, you can eat them, but eat them very, very modestly. Be careful of what you're doing. It depends on your health stat as far as how much to eat. And this leads us to the food pyramid. And remember, I've talked about this in the other podcast too. Remember, the food pyramid that they came out with has 0 science behind it. This was from the sugar industry that was given marketing advice to the food companies. That's where that came from. How do you get more people to eat your product? You want to make sure that they are eating nothing but carbs. Tell them that animal meat is horrible. That way they stay away from the animal meat, the good, healthy stuff, and they're going to eat all your carbohydrates. That's what they're doing. And carbohydrates keep you feeling hungry all the time. You're constantly hungry. That's what carbohydrates do. And I've talked about this in past podcasts, but that was a marketing scheme. The food pyramid has no scientific background. And the food pyramid, I used to say that it should just be flipped upside down and cut the top off, but really the whole thing should be thrown away. I mean, it is absolutely ludicrous, and it is killing people every single day from eating this type of food. That's what's putting everybody in the hospital and putting them on medications. So that's all I'm going to go with on that. But so there's prioritize protein, don't fear fat, control your carbohydrates. And the next one is knowing the percentages of the protein to fat to carbohydrates that you need to be having. Okay. And it really depends. If you are in perfect health, you feel really good about yourself. You know, your weight's good, your energy's good, your thoughts are clear, everything's great, but you still want to have some carbohydrates. That would be fine. So if you look at calories, you want to just to maintain, whether you maintain your health, you try to prevent a disease from coming on that you're already getting close to that and you want to prevent crossing that line, or if you have the disease and you want to reverse it. And I'm talking about anything like type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, psychological disorders, foggy head, GI, inflammatory bowel syndrome, Crohn's disease, all irritable bowel syndrome. All those things can be totally reversed when you start clearing up your nutrition. So all these, whether you're maintaining, preventing, or reversing, all 3 of those, and this is just a suggestion, but close, you should have about 30% of your calories should be coming from protein, no matter which one you're doing, maintaining, preventing, or reversing. So what you change is the ratio of the fat to carbohydrates. So when you're looking, if you're just maintaining, you could have up to 20% carbohydrates. If you just have to have carbohydrates, you'd want to have about 20% carbs and 50% fat. Now, if you're on your way to a disease, say you got diagnosed with pre-diabetes or something like that, and don't get me off on the whole term of pre-diabetes, because I did a podcast on that earlier also. But if you have pre-diabetes and you don't want it to be diabetes, then you have to decrease your carbohydrates and increase your fat. So if you're wanting to prevent, again, it's 30% protein, but 55% fat and only 15% carbohydrates. Now, if you're trying to reverse, if you already have type 2 diabetes, or if you have psoriasis or eczema or high blood pressure or irritable bowel syndrome or inflammatory bowel disease, and so many more, if you're having any of those problems seeing, problems thinking, if you have any of that stuff, then you really need to cut your carbohydrates down. Depending on how bad, you could cut it to 0. We've already talked about that. But to reverse it, again, you want 30% protein, but as far as the fat, you want more fat. So now it goes to 60% fat and only 10% carbohydrates. Okay. So you get the drift. These aren't scientifically exact percentages. This is just examples. So you always need your protein no matter what. But as far as how much fat and how much carbohydrates, that depends on how your health is. But again, if you're wanting to reverse diabetes, you've got to stay away from carbohydrates, especially the ones that are below the ground. But I would stay away from all carbohydrates. And with all of this, you always stay away from man-made products. All the man-made food is toxic to us. Anything that has a label on it, all those labels is just a list of all the chemicals they put in this product, which is making you sick. Okay, so that's enough of that. Number 5, time-restricted eating. And I'll just go through this real quick. There's different ways that you can time restricted eating. And the whole purpose of this is keeping your insulin levels low. Because as I've said, the 3 columns are high insulin levels, high glucose levels, and inflammation. So if you want to keep your insulin levels low, that's where you stick to your fat and your meat, because protein will increase your insulin levels just a little bit. Fat won't affect it at all. The carbohydrates are what really raises your insulin levels high, and especially the man-made carbohydrates. Those are absolutely horrible. So one of the ways you can keep your insulin levels low is called time-restricted eating. So this is and there's different ways. Some people can eat normally for 5 days and then not eat anything, just drink water or unsweet coffee or unsweet tea for 2 days. Some people eat normally for 6 days, and then one day they don't eat anything. They just drink water, unsweet coffee, or unsweet tea. I personally, what we do is we like where you eat all your meals in about a 6 to 8 hour time frame. And that leaves the other 16 to 18 hours that you're not putting anything in your mouth except water and sugar. Hopefully not, but water, unsweet coffee, and unsweet tea. That'll give that whole 16 to 18 hours to let your insulin levels go down. When your insulin levels are low, you start burning fat out of your fat cells, because that's how, and I've talked about this in the past, but your high insulin levels actually force your body to store fat. You cannot burn it when your insulin levels are high. When your insulin levels are low, it's exact opposite. You have to use your own fat for your energy source. Okay. You can't store it. Your body won't let you store it. So that's why you want to keep your insulin levels low. And so these are just different ways that you can do this. And this isn't going to be a whole great big thing on time restricted eating, because I've done topics on that too. Podcast number 93 is the role of intermittent fasting. Okay. So if you want to hear more about that, you can go there. But the main thing is be careful, because again, the food companies have brainwashed everybody with these marketing schemes, telling everybody that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Of course, they're going to say that, because then they're promoting that you eat things like drink fruit juice, drink your smoothies, eat your oatmeal, take a protein bar to work, or whatever. All those are carbs, 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 carbs. Because if you eat carbs for breakfast, you're going to be hungry all day long. And what you're going to reach for is more carbs. And cha-ching, the food companies are making a ton of money. So it is another marketing ploy saying that breakfast is the most important of the day. That is incorrect. The best thing to do, probably, and it depends, the best thing you should do is try to pick which 2 meals you like. Just eat twice a day. You could start off with 3, then finally figure out which one you don't need, breakfast or dinner. And usually it's breakfast, but some people really like to have breakfast. And so you can eat all that then, and eat those 2 meals in just a little 6 to 8 hour time period, and then nothing the rest of the time. And be careful though, if you go on a fast, if you're on one of these fasts where it's like a 24-hour fast, after about 24 hours, your pancreas, and I just talked about this in the last podcast, your pancreas is very, very efficient. So if it has insulin sitting around in it that it's not going to use, it'll start degrading that insulin. So, and that happens within about 24 hours. So if you're doing one of these long day, 2-day, 3-day fast, you have to be very careful when you break that fast, when you're getting ready to eat again. You do not want to put a lot of carbohydrates in your mouth, because now your pancreas doesn't have any insulin in it that's going to be able to take care of it. So it's going to have to start producing it. So if you do one of these fasts that lasts longer than 24 hours, be careful when you're done with the fast. You need to start eating just a little bit of protein, a little bit of fat, and just tiny, tiny amounts of carbohydrates at first, to be able to get your pancreas to start producing the insulin again. So how you stop a fast is very important. And you don't want to be starving during a fast, because then you start getting into that where you sit there and you just eat to indulgence, and then you purge or get rid of it, or you're starving yourself until you just can't go anymore, and then you start eating all this food. That's what you don't want. And if you stick to animal protein, animal based foods, you will not get all that hunger, because animal based foods keep you feeling full for long periods of time. That's why people who eat animal based foods is the main thing they eat. It's very easy for them to go 24, 48 hours without food, because they feel so satiated. But you do need to be eating, because you still have to get your vitamins, you still have to get your minerals, you need to get your protein, your fat. So I don't recommend long fasts. I know a lot of people do, but I like the shorter, just to eat all your meals in a 6 to 8 hour time period. Okay, so that was time restricted eating. The next one is sleep. Sleep is so important. You guys have no idea, or some of you may, but sleep is so important. It does so many good things in your body. It gets rid of all the metabolites, all the chemical reactions. Every chemical reaction in your body, it produces byproducts. Okay. And these byproducts, you don't want them sitting around in your body. They're waste products. So they need to be excreted out of your body. And that's what happens when you sleep. It clears a lot of these waste products out of the brain. It cleans a lot of the waste products out of your body. This is when you get your muscle growth. Like if you're working out during the day and you're eating well, at night is when you actually get your muscle growth. There's so many different things that go on with sleep. And I've already talked about this in episode 16. Is sleep really that important? Yes, sleep is very important. So I'm not going to go into a lot of this. One thing I do want you to realize, though, one thing with the sleep is the cooler it is, the better most people sleep. When you eat glucose and your insulin goes high, that also makes your body temperature go high. High glucose and high body temperature kind of go hand in hand with each other. So you really, if you are going to eat any carbohydrates, try to make that way before you ever go to bed. Like, if you could do 4 to 6 hours before you go to bed would be the last carbohydrate you put in your mouth. You'll do a lot better. It'll help keep your temperature down so you can sleep better. That's just a side note. Number 7 is water. Water, again, is extremely important. You really need water every single day. And I talked all about this in episode 17. Is water really that important? Yes, it is. Because again, you have all these metabolic waste that are going through your body all the time. So you need water to be able to flush those out. You need water to get the good nutrients to your cells. Remember, we're 65% water or 60% water. So it's very important that you do this. So how much water? Take your ideal body weight. Okay. So that's not how much you weigh. So if you weigh 300 pounds, you don't want to use that weight. You want to use the weight that you know that you should be at. That's your ideal body weight. Take that weight, divide by 2, and that'll tell you the number of ounces that you should be drinking every single day. So a lot of people think, oh, water's good, I'm supposed to be drinking, and they're drinking way too much water, and it dilutes out your electrons and everything in your body, all your proteins and everything. So you got to be careful. You don't want to dilute out your nutrients. You don't want to dilute out your sodium. You don't want to dilute out your potassium. So you can drink too much water. So back to what I said, it's half your ideal body weight. That's the number of ounces every day. So let's say you weigh 220 pounds. You should weigh 180 pounds. So take the 180, divide by 2, that's 90. So you should be drinking 90 ounces of plain water every single day. If you're drinking caffeine, that does not count. That's actually an anti-water because it makes you pee more. So you have to replenish that amount also. But you need to have your water, extremely important. Okay, number 8, movement. And I just did a podcast on this on episode number 29. Why is moving your body important for infection, nutrition, and swelling? And I highly recommend you go back and listen to that. Movement is extremely important. Just walking. You don't have to run. You don't have to go run a marathon or anything like that. You don't even have to lift. I mean, lifting is good, but you don't have to. But you do have to move. And I explained that all in that episode number 29. But basically, you've got a lymphatic system that runs right around your blood vessels, your arteries and your veins. There's a lymphatic system. And your arteries and veins have a heart to pump it. Your lymphatic system does not. So with your lymphatic system, the only way it pumps is by you moving. The importance of the lymphatic system is this is where I talked about all those chemical waste from all these chemical reactions that are going on all through your body all the time. They produce waste, and your body's always producing waste, and that excretes it into your lymphatic system. And all the extra water that builds up around your tissues, where if you have any edema, that's why, because that also the lymphatic system gets rid of all that fluid. But the only way you can get rid of it is by moving, by you actually moving your body, and your muscles are contracting. That's what pumps that lymphatic fluid out through your body, dumps it into the right atrium of your heart, and then into your blood system so you can actually excrete that out of your body. If you do not move, these toxins just sit there and they just build up, and the fluid in your legs will just build up and get worse and worse and worse. So if you have trouble with edema, you have got to be walking every day, and you don't need to walk miles. Really, even if you walk 2,000 steps a day, that's better than nothing. But they have shown that around 4,500 steps is really kind of the best. If you want to do more, that's fine. But if you can at least get 4,500 steps in a day, that would be great. Okay. 10,000 steps. That was another marketing ploy. And I talked about that in one of these later podcasts, but it's not 10,000 steps. All the 10,000 means is in Japan, back in the 60s, they came up with a pedometer that tracked your steps. And they found that the number 10,000, the character for 10,000 in Japanese, looks like the lower half of a man running. That's where the 10,000 came from. There's no science behind it. The science has been done since then, has shown that at least 4,500 steps, that's where you get really, that's where you're kind of at a really good amount that you should be getting every day. Okay. Last thing, number 9 is stress. Okay. You've got to decrease stress. You have no idea. Stress is so hard on the body. When you're stressed, your body releases cortisol. That's your stress hormone. That causes your liver to release glucose, and that causes your insulin levels to go high. So if you're stressed all the time, you're keeping your insulin levels high all the time. And this causes damage all over the body. And there's a lot more to it than that, but that one thing we'll all talk about now. So you've got to decrease your stress. Okay. Decrease your stress, decrease your insulin levels, and improve your health. However you want to do that, whether it's meditation, whether it's walking out in nature, whether it's, number 10. Number 10 is enjoy being with friends, enjoy being around people. That is also a very good stress reliever. You got to figure out who are the people that you hang around the most, because you are kind of like the average of the 5 people that you hang around the most. So when you leave a conversation with somebody, you should leave feeling great. You should leave thinking, man, that was fun. Or I've learned something. Now I'm going to go do something else. I learned a new goal it makes you feel energized and happy. If you leave being with friends and you feel drained, like, oh my gosh, I am so glad that's over with. That was grueling. Those are the types of friends that you need to be figuring out. Now, sometimes that may be a family member, so you can't just get rid of them, but you can limit the amount of time you take with them. But when you're around friends, happy friends that you enjoy, family that you enjoy being with, and they make you feel better about yourself, even coworkers, you want to surround yourself with the people that make you feel better. If you feel worse, those are the kinds of friends you need to kind of start getting rid of as much as you can. So just to recap real quick, the 10 that I've talked about is prioritize protein. 2 is don't fear fat. 3, control carbohydrates. 4, make sure you have the right percentages of protein, fat, and carbohydrates, depending on whether you're maintaining, preventing, or reversing diseases. Think about time-restricted eating to keep those insulin levels low. 6 is sleep. Prioritize your sleep. You really need to get 6 to 10 hours of sleep every day. If I know there's people who say they go on 4 and 5 hours, they can't. Even if they think they can, their body can't. They're keeping their body from being at the peak of what it can be at. So you really need to have at least 6 to 10 hours of good quality sleep. The other one is 7 is water. You make sure you drink plenty of water every day, but not too much. And then 8, movement. Just walk. Just get out and move your body so you can pump that lymphatic fluid and pump all those toxins out of your body. 9, stress. If you're stressed, try to do anything you can to relieve that stress, whether it's reading a book, walking, being with a friend, meditation, whatever it is, you need to really decrease your stress. And the last one is enjoy being with friends, enjoy being with others, share those relationships where everybody builds each other and they make everybody better. That's what you want to be. You want to continuously be better. And if you have the friends that are of that same mindset, then all of you can help each other to become better, whatever better means to you. But for me, I truly think a good quality health means you are doing very well. So I know this was an extremely long, this is the longest one I've ever done, but I really think all this stuff is important. So thank you so much for listening. If you listen this far, I'm extremely impressed. And as always, thank you so much for listening. Have a fantastic week. And as always, make simple, healthy choices to live a quality life.